Dear friends, welcome to the latest episode of the True Waters podcast. My name is Nga. I grew up in northern Vietnam and have been living elsewhere since I was 23. This series is a way for me to journal the humble insights I've gathered along the way. These insights are personal to my being, and I hope they might find some meaning in your life as well. May we be happy. May we be free from pain and suffering. May we live in peace and well-being. And may we be free. And may we be free. Hi, it's good to be back. I hope you've been doing well since the last episode. As for me, I've been busy with gardening and easing back to work. And today I'm gonna be talking about spirituality. But to be honest, it wasn't something I ever imagined would become part of my life. But well, life had other plans. Back when I was studying Korean at the language school of Kaemyung University, Korea, we once had a class discussion about 종교 or religion. And the teacher began by asking a few students at random whether they followed any religion or spiritual belief. After hearing from some students, she turned to me and asked the same question. But she did it in a playful manner as if she had already said something about me. And she goes, 응아는요? 혹시 종교 있으신가요? 아니면 응아교를 믿으시죠? What about you, Nga? Do you follow any particular religion? Or do you believe in Ngaism, Nga? And in my head, I was like, how come you knew me so well before I even said a word? But she was right. I was an atheist throughout my 26 years living as a human being. And really, I tended to just trust more in my own efforts and abilities than in quote-unquote higher power or external source of guidance. And by the time I was living in Korea, I also didn't even feel that I had a genuine spiritual connection with my ancestors. Despite growing up in a culture where ancestor worship is a thing, it was a long-standing tradition, in fact. But back then, I used to hang out with a couple of religious friends I met there, some Christians, some Muslims. Among them was this one particular friend whom we affectionately called Pons. Pons preferred that name because she thought it sounded cuter than her real one. Pons was such a genuine Christian, I would say. I use the word genuine because her faith was evident, not in what she said and preached, but in how she lived. She was not someone who followed a religion blindly just because her parents told her to or out of family tradition. Rather, she made a sincere effort to seek out a spiritual community that would help her deepen the understanding of her faith and its teachings. She had shown me a real-life example of someone that practiced her religious teachings diligently, took refuge in them, and sought out to apply the insights and wisdom she gained to her daily life. If you were around her, you could see how her religious beliefs practically enriched her life, brought her joy, and inspired her to be of service and care for others. Her presence seems to make a positive impact on the people and community around her in a sense that they became a little warmer, kinder, and more compassionate. Fast forward 3 years later, after a year in language school and 2 years in grad school, about a week before graduation, I injured my arm. And from that point on, I went through a series of sickness, both physical and mental. It took 6 months swimming in a sea of pain before I finally reached a point where I began seeking refuge in a spiritual practice. Looking back now, I realized that the seed of spirituality had been quietly and naturally planted in me through the friendships with people like Pons. All it needed was the right set of conditions to germinate. On the one hand, it took pain, agony, tears, perpetuating state of depression, broken relationships with family members, and even periods of having suicidal thoughts. And on the other hand, it took determination, diligent research into treatment options, and countless rehab practices to restore my health and feel alive again. Suffering and perseverance, two seemingly contradictory forces, yet both became favorable conditions for the spiritual seed that had long been sown within me to finally take root. Well, I didn't end up following Christianity or Islam, but a different faith and practice instead. However, I am so grateful I came to spirituality not to escape reality, not to worship any particular figure and pray for favors from them, and certainly not to bind myself to rituals and formalities. I'm glad I came to spirituality as a way of understanding my own sufferings in order to go through them and face reality with courage and resilience. And for that, I feel deeply thankful to all my religious friends. Knowing them reinforced in me the importance and wholesomeness of having a spiritual dimension in my life. Although I have a faith to follow now, I don't think one must necessarily belong to a certain religion in order to become a spiritual person. I think each of us can tap into our spiritual dimension by looking deeply inside ourselves. More often than not, the seed of spirituality is already there, planted in one way or another by a particular person in our lives, an experience we have gone through, or an event that happened within our time or long before it. But if we do choose to follow a religion, I think it's important to know that we are free to follow whichever path that speaks to us and guides us toward kindness, compassion, and wholesomeness. When we truly grasp the wisdom contained in its teaching and put that wisdom into practice, rather than keeping them confined to rituals, ceremonies, or inside a temple, a church, or a mosque, that is when spirituality is truly made alive and starts to enrich our own lives and in turn the lives of those around us. Dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed the episode. Among all the content out there, thank you for slowing down and listening. That alone already means a lot to me. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can subscribe to the channel. And if you're able, you can buy me a tea through the PayPal link in the description below. Your support in any form is deeply appreciated. I hope you stay well. See you next time.